Back in those days in college, you had exams every Monday morning, and if you failed 2 of those exams, you were out. You'd have your exam on a Monday morning, and Monday afternoon, if you were on strike 3, the instructors would walk into the classroom and march you out, and you never ever saw people again. And I'd spent 4 years in the workforce before I joined, and my first 2 exams I failed by 1 point and half a point. And so my head was on the chopping block for the rest of the course. And but I learned how to study very, very quickly, and I got through. I transferred to Melbourne for a short time, and then back to the ACT, because that's what I wanted to do, was ACT policing. So in 1987, I was at City Station on Squad 2 back then, and the teams were about 12 or 13 members. We had a sergeant, a senior sergeant and a station sergeant, unlike we do today, and they worked every shift. And on each team there'd be 6 senior connies, a couple of first connies, a couple of connies and a couple of jaffos, as we were known back then. From there I moved to random breath test squad, which was run out of City Station, and we just did random breath testing. Crossed to the beat team, or beat squad it was called back in those days. About 1996 I went to juvenile crime team, where I spent a few months up there, which was different and interesting. And from then on I went to diversionary conferencing, and a lot of people know a little bit about what it is these days. But back in those days we were the sort of pioneers of diversionary conferencing here in Canberra. The ANU were conducting an evaluation on whether reintegrative shaming worked, and that was called the RISE experiment. So we worked closely with the university, the ANU here, and there was myself and another member, basically were the diversionary conference team. And I think to this day I still hold the record for running the most amount of diversionary conferences between victims and offenders. So that's something that I sort of cherish. Traffic was in my blood, so I moved back to traffic. In about 2001, North and South Traffic merged to become traffic operations out of City Station. So I was moved in there, and in 2002, I believe it was, I was asked to act in the role of operations manager back then, which is what the OIC's position is now. Something significant for me, and it's tied to policing, but it's actually not police work as such, was in 1996, I think a lot of people probably still remember Cropper Cop, where police raised $1,000 to shave their head and they'd donate to kids with cancer. Well, in 1996, I was the organiser to organise the ACT contingent to raise as much money as we could, go to Sydney for the head shave. 48 cops from Canberra hopped on an action bus. The first stop was a bottle shop in Dixon. We went to Sydney, we all got our head shaved. People I'd known for 10 years, I didn't recognise the next day. It was just a sea of baldness. And we had a ball, and I'm really proud to say that year we raised $106,000, and that's just cops getting together. And it shows the camaraderie and the brotherhood of what policing's all about, and that was a fantastic result, and I'm really proud of that. The basic principles of policing are still there. Technology has played a major part in where we are today. A lot of positives and few negatives. I recall as a constable filling out a criminal offence report, which was a COR. And back in those days, you had 6 sheets of paper. I think there was 3 whites, a green, yellow and a blue, or something like that. And they come in a tear-off pad. So if you were investigating a theft, you had to come back to the station, you'd get your CORs, put your carbon, do you know what carbon paper is? You'd put your carbon paper between each one, put in the Olivetti, twist it round, line it up, and start typing away. And you get to the next line, you've got to line it all up. And if it wasn't neat, your sergeant would send it back to be retyped. Every COR had to be checked by your sergeant, so you'd finish it off, you'd read it, put it in his tray, and it'd come back with red pen all over it, so you'd had to start again. And sometimes you'd put the carbon paper in upside down, so you get 5 copies instead of 6. You'd have to start again. I recall in traffic, we'd stand at an intersection. You'd park your bike somewhere, and when the lights went red, you'd walk up in between the cars looking for the expired rego label, and you'd call them out. And these days with Rapid, fantastic tool, mobile, detects in a second, does a check, and tell you whether the owner might be unlicensed or the vehicle's unregistered or cancelled driver, things like that. Sometimes technology isn't on our side in relation to things like Facebook and Twitter, where information has gotten back to families and victims before we've been able to identify or commence investigation of an offence, which is, and that's just the age we live in, and that's something that we'll have to adapt further to. In traffic operations, we will provide motorcycle escorts for dignitaries, the Governor-General, Prime Minister, to official events, and that really made me proud. Boy from the bush, in the big smoke, escorting these people around. That was a great moment. And I do recall one time we'd escorted the then Governor-General, Sir William Dean, and I think everybody would remember Billy Dean. He was just a decent bloke. We'd pulled up under the portico at Government House to drop him off. We hopped off our bikes. He jumped out of the back of the rolls, walked up and shook our hands and said, "Do you want to come in for morning tea, fellas?" So we've wandered in, and that was just a fantastic moment. We've sat down with the Governor-General, Billy Dean, in the kitchen, eating lamingtons, drinking coffee, just talking about stuff. And that was a really, really proud moment, really humbling.